Good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 7, and we recognize the Métis people of Alberta who share a deep connection with this land. I am joined today by my colleague Irfan Sabir, the MLA for Calgary-Buller-McCall and our justice critic, and by our leader, Rachel Notley. We're here today to talk about car insurance and the skyrocketing premiums Albertans are seeing on their bills every month. Now, let's review how we got here. In 2019, the UCP removed the cap on insurance premiums put in place by our NDP government. It's one of the first things they did after getting elected. The cap made sure that if rates did go up, they couldn't go up by more than 5% per year. Now, the UCP took that cap on insurance off because the Premier's close friend and former staffer lobbied the UCP government to do so on behalf of the big insurance companies in Toronto. Immediately, Albertans' bills started getting bigger. And then, in 2020, the pandemic hit. More Albertans parked their cars and worked from home. There were fewer vehicles on the road, fewer collisions, and that should have led to lower rates. And in fact, in other provinces, it did, but not in Alberta. Car insurance rates here skyrocketed. The insurance companies saw their chance to cash in and they took it. The car insurance industry charged Albertan drivers $385 million more in premiums in 2020 than they did in 2019, despite thousands of drivers spending less time on the road. Now, those same companies collected $1.3 billion more in premiums from you than they paid out in claims, boosting their profits, expanding their margins, sending that money to their shareholders and their friends and insiders in Toronto in the middle of a pandemic. You paid for that. Albertans saw their bills go up anywhere from 10 to 30%, and hundreds of dollars more disappeared out of each and every person's pocket since then. Now, these are private companies, and they're going to do what private companies do. But it was the UCP's responsibility to look out for ordinary people. And they failed Alberta families. They gave the green light to the insurance industry to take them for a ride. Alberta families now deserve action more than ever. So here to tell us what that looks like is the leader of Alberta's NDP, Rachel Notley.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you for joining us, Irfan. As Shannon said, we're in this situation because the UCP put their wealthy friends in the insurance lobby ahead of Alberta families. In normal times, Albertans might just grit their teeth and bear these costs, making sacrifices to keep their vehicles insured. But these aren't normal times. Inflation is skyrocketing both. The pressure is real. And it's being made worse by the UCP's billion-dollar tax grab on inflation, which takes even more of Albertans' incomes, not to mention their hikes to property taxes, school fees, tuition, and more. Utility bills are also through the roof, after the UCP also removed our cap on utility prices. So right now, Albertans are facing a cost of living crisis. 3 in 4 Albertans are worried about their savings, and more than half say they're just $200 away from not being able to make things meet at the end of the month. So it is not okay with me that working families are filled with this kind of anxiety every time they go to open up their bills at the end of the month, or every time they head out to the grocery store. The fact is, more and more families need help. But instead of swift action, the UCP government is making things worse. They are months behind on their promised utility rates, and Jason Kenney is too busy campaigning for his job to help stop those ever-increasing insurance premiums. In fact, they're actually counting on those premiums going up. The UCP's own budget predicts that insurance premiums will continue to rise by almost $900 million over the next 3 years, at a time when Albertans can least afford it. That's $900 million in new out-of-pocket costs for Albertans just to keep the car insurance that they have. And we can't let this happen. So, when it comes to premiums, Alberta's NDP is holding up the stop sign. And we are saying to the UCP and to their friends in the insurance industry, plain and simple, we are calling 23. When Albertans then, hopefully, can go to the polls and choose if they want a UCP government that lets insurance companies continue to pick their pockets, or an NDP government that will help keep the family car on the road. $360 million. This doesn't offset all the costs from rising inflation, but I would say it's a good start. And on top of that, it gives some predictability to Albertans who are in desperate need of that. If we don't act now, this will only get worse. Rates will keep going up unchecked, and families will keep paying more. The finance minister has been cherry-picking rates at certain companies to claim that Albertans are now finally saving money. But first of all, he ignores the ridiculous increases that Albertans had to face last year, and he also ignores that many other insurance companies are continuing to seek premium increases even today. It's time for a break. It's time for a freeze. I hope the UCP will finally put Alberta working families ahead of their wealthy friends and lobbyists in the insurance industry. But if they refuse, I promise you this: an NDP government will always put the interests of families first, and we will put a stop to these predatory increases in your car insurance. So thank you, and we're pleased to take any questions you might have.
I'll try again. Sorry about that. Ms. Notley, the government's own insurance regulator, in their most recent release, suggests that the Alberta Auto Insurance Rate Board, suggests that over the last 12 months, insurance rates are down by 0.83%. What sense do you make of those figures?
Well, what we know is that prior to that, we saw insurance rates increase by anywhere from 20 to 30%. So, we've seen 6 or 7 different insurance companies go in and ask for additional increases. And overall, what we know is that we saw a $300 million increase in the profits experienced by insurance companies in 2020. So it's all fine to say, oh yeah, it's okay now, but we're just going to ignore the outrageous increases that people already had to pay. And also the fact that we still see insurance companies coming to the board asking for significant increases. And right now, what we know is that Albertans can't tolerate this cherry picking. What they need is a clear rule that's in place that will give them the predictability and the stability that they need to plan out their budgets over, of course, at least the next year.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that all of these increases occurred before the last calendar year?
Many of them did, but in fact, we also know that in the last month, we've seen 7 or 8 companies already go in and, 5 companies go in and request additional increases. So the fact of the matter is that we know that as soon as they got the opportunity to get bigger increases, they went for it. And we know that right now they're going for it. And we know that their profits went up considerably at a time when in other provinces during the pandemic, when people were parking their cars and the risk of payouts was much lower, other people in this country got rebates. But in Alberta, insurance companies got great big bumps to their profit margin.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for watching.